Hello my darlings and welcome to a very, very special video. We are here in one of the most beautiful places in the Cotswolds. It is such an honour to give you an exclusive peek into the beautiful gardens, the kitchen gardens and the glass houses that belong to Lady Bamford here at Daylesford House. These gardens were open a couple of weeks ago for the National Garden Scheme, and boy oh boy, I took so much inspiration from that day, whether it's the pelargoniums blooming in the glass houses, or whether it's the intricate details that make these gardens so beautiful, from the structures to the pairing of the plants that grow next to each other. I just can't wait to show you around. So without further ado, let's explore the gardens here at Daylesford House. So there's someone very important that I would like to introduce you to. This is Joe. Joe is head gardener here at the Daylesford estate. What a beautiful place to work, Joe. Yeah, we're very privileged to be right in the middle of the Cotswolds here. Beautiful garden, surrounded by Daylesford estate. So yeah, it's a great place to work. Yeah, the garden's kind of constantly evolving. Things are always changing, you know, whether it's the climate or kind of evolving fashions. Yeah, the seasons and the seasonality. So yeah, we're kind of constantly evolving, growing with the garden, really. Absolutely beautiful. So this area here, is this the heart of the kitchen garden, would you say? Yeah, so this is the production garden. So everything that's grown here is grown for Lord and Lady Bamford. So at the farm shop is where they grow all the produce for the shop. So everything here is for their use, really. Absolutely beautiful. And I love that you've got the 𝑭𝒒𝒿𝒻 catmint underneath. Is this apple blossom you've got? Yeah, so these we've got trained apples on here, and then we've got a rose on the central archway, and blueberries in the pots here. Ah. So is that strategic from a companion planting, or is that just because it looks good? They quite like a bit of shade under here. They do quite well. We mix it up. We try and do different things all the time. Try and, you know, not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but try and do things, you know, slightly different to other people and give it that kind of Daylesford benchmark, really. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. With Daylesford, there's always just such an attention to detail with everything, and you can see that here in the garden, whether it's what you've planted next to each other or the plant supports, which I'm really excited to see. But I think maybe first, shall we go and take a look inside the glass houses? Yeah, sure. Let's go. I feel like you've absolutely mastered the wildflower here. Is this turf or is this seed? So these are actually ancient meadows. We do introduce a few annuals, okay, sort of as and when needed. But to be honest, these meadows are completely left untouched. Wow. We're quite blessed. We've got lots of orchids in here, and yeah, there's some great wildflowers. It kind of ebbs and flows year on year. Occasionally we'll add different things into it, but other than that, it's completely hands-off approach. So these are the main growing spaces for the flowers and the veg, or just the flowers? So this one here is just our pelargonium collection, and then the other glass houses are kind of propagation houses. Okay. We've got another glass house we grow our veg seedlings on with. Beautiful. Oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever seen so many pelargoniums in one place. I mean, the fragrance in here is absolutely stunning, isn't it? Yeah, especially on a warm day like today, it really zings, doesn't it? Absolutely beautiful. How many pelargoniums do you think are in here? So I think there's about 450 plants in here. Wow. And of those 450, there's about 160 different varieties. Wow. I didn't know there were that many. Quite a number. I mean, there's many more than that. We mostly grow the scented leaves. Then we've got a few regals, a few uniques and zonals as well, but most of the ones that Lady Bamford collects are the scented leaves. Absolutely beautiful. Sorry, this is a silly question. So the leaves are scented, not the flowers? Absolutely. The flowers do have a little bit of scent on some of them, but it's mostly the leaves. I've learned something new today. Is that across the board with all pelargoniums?
Not all the leaves smell. I mean, some of the zonals and the regals, they do have a little bit of scent to them, but mainly the scented leaf ones, you know, are the ones that really kind of give you the kind of strong scent.
Wow, that's so interesting. So I've got a few both pelargoniums and geraniums in my greenhouse at home. Do they last better if you're constantly deadheading bits like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So these ones here we'll pick through and deadhead almost daily. Again, any yellow leaves. You know, good hygiene is really important. So we'll take off any yellow leaves, deadhead them on a regular basis. And then these are fed with a seaweed feed, probably about once a week. Okay,
just once a week.
Yeah, and then, you know, we've got a regular regime of kind of potting stuff on. So of the sort of 170 odd we've got here, yeah, there's duplicates. So we've got kind of bigger mother plants, and then the smaller ones that we're growing on. So it's actually in alphabetical order. So your A round to Z, background by the door.
My goodness. So other than watering daily, did you say? Feeding weekly?
No, so I mean, they don't like to be too wet. So with these, obviously temperature dependent, these ones are given a really good soak, probably every 2 or 3 days. And then yeah, they're quite happy to dry out a little bit. You're far better to let them dry out, give them a really good soak, you know, every few days as opposed to giving them a little bit every day, really.
That's interesting. Okay. So I can step away from the watering can every couple of days.
Absolutely.
Brilliant, that's good to know. And are there certain varieties that they would use for the products in Bamford?
We've got some of them here. So this one is a Tar of Roses, which has been selected as well. So if you rub your hands through it, it's got that kind of rose scent to it.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. Wow. So this is a rose, like just a rose fragrance?
Yeah, rose scented. So the leaves, you know, they've got that kind of traditional rose smell to them. And then you've got the graviolens here, which is this is the very kind of traditional pelargonium smell, kind of that nostalgic smell. And then this lovely kind of soft, waxy leafed one here, this is the tomentosum, so that's
minty.
Quite minty and fresh. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. I love the texture of these leaves. It's funny how they're so different to each other, but all in the same family.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got the Maple Grey, which has got the kind of serration in the leaves there, the pointed leaves. So those four are the ones that are in the collection. You know, they've all quite nice contrast in leaf shape, size, colour, flower, scent. So yeah, it's kind of a nice mix, really.
Has Lady Bamford got a favourite?
Tough to say. Probably the Attar of Roses.
And which is your favourite?
I quite like the tomentosum. I like the soft leaves. It's kind of a bit big. It's kind of quite blousy. It's got that kind of freshness to it as well.
Yeah, they all smell absolutely gorgeous. Well, it's beautiful but very toasty in here, and I would love to see where your veggies are in the kitchen garden. So should we head that way?
Sure.
Let's go. So we're heading back down towards the kitchen garden. You mentioned at the beginning how everything's grown organically. So has it been that way for quite some time?
Yeah, so since Lord and Lady Bamford bought the estate, you know, it's been managed organically. So the garden is entirely organic, you know, which is great. I mean, having come from a background where, you know, we weren't entirely organic into a now fully organic garden, I don't see any way that you'd need to use any form of chemicals or pesticides. You know, everything we manage here, we do so organically. I wouldn't say with ease, but you know, there's ebbs and flows, things like aphids and things like that.
How do you organically stop the aphids from taking over?
Well, you can use things like parasitic insects, and there are things like organic plant oils that you can apply.
Okay.
But actually, you just live with it.
Yeah.
You know, some years you don't have such a problem, other years you do, but you know, ultimately the birds will come along and eat them, you know, encouraging the ladybirds. So we try and leave areas of the garden where, you know, insects can kind of overwinter. So not all of our meadows will be cut at once. We'll kind of do those over succession, and leave areas entirely just so that there's a bit of a refuge for wildlife, really. The willow structures, this is actually a metal framework in here, and then what we do is we buy the willow from a company down in Somerset, and Lindsay, one of our gardeners, does these lovely hearts and shapes on them. It looks great, to be honest.
It really does. Would this structure last over a winter, or do you do a new one every year?
So they do last 2 years. They start to fall apart after the first year. You know, you can rewind some fresh willow around them and kind of, you know, freshen them up a little bit. It just depends on the type of window. The willow frames that we've got there for the squashes.
Oh, the squash will grow over that?
Yeah. So we've got shark's fin squash gourds that will grow over those.
Oh my goodness.
Those are 2 years old, but it's a much thicker material.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit more robust, really.
I'm going to have to come back in September and see your squash archways. How beautiful. So this in a month or so will just be full of blooms, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this area excites me so much because you've had so much fun with the structures. I love the willow frames, and I'm glad to see your sweet peas are still quite small, because mine look like that too, but I haven't put mine out yet. Am I too late?
No, so these ones have been in a week or two now. They're just kind of getting established. Once they get going, you know, we'll start tying them in. But you know, you can see they're still quite young. There's still a few tendrils there, so we'll take some of the tendrils off and we'll start encouraging them up. And then you've got the edible peas around the outside there as well, so it's quite nice with the contrast, especially with the frames in between them as well.
It's really lovely. You've almost created a hedge of the edible peas. This I copied from coming here last year, the plant pots on top of the wooden stakes. I just think that looks adorable. Very Nancy Myers, Martha Stewart vibes.
Absolutely.
Everyone's loving that, but I'm sure Lady Bamford did it first. Are these peas or mange too?
Those ones are peas there. So yeah, we've got mange too. There's some mange too at the back over there as well. And
you've planted radish underneath?
Yeah, so it's quite a good companion plant. I mean, it also gives it a bit of protection. The other thing, obviously, we've got them netted here because the pigeons love to come and eat all the peas.
They do.
But yeah, no, they grow away quite well there. So and likewise with the sweet peas here. These will come up and do their thing, and we'll cut these and use these in the house. But once the sweet peas sort of wither towards the end of the summer, we've got cobia, which is the cup and saucer vine.
Lovely.
So we'll plant those through the framework as well, and it's kind of that dual use of the willow structure, really.
Beautiful. And just going back to the edible peas, do the pigeons always eat them, or could I take the net off once they get a bit taller? Is that risky?
That's risky.
Darn it.
No, the pigeons are clever, and what they like to do is actually land on top of the net and pick through it. So yeah, we don't risk taking our nets off until we've got the crop off, really.
Darn it. Well, your pigeons must have different taste to my pigeons, just 15 minutes away, because I noticed that is it broccoli you've got over there that's not netted?
Yes. Yeah, so there's some broccoli over in the corner, which they remarkably left alone. Maybe they're too busy eating everyone else's peas.
Yeah, they're busy eating mine. Oh my goodness. I love that you've got flowers next to the edibles as well. Is that for pollination?
Yeah, so we've got this kind of flower canal through the middle of the garden here, because, you know, although we're a production garden, it's also about kind of, you know, it needs to look nice as well and be productive. Yeah. So we've got the standard solanums, which are the potato vines. We've then got some salvias in here, which will flower on through the summer. There's actually a couple of pelargoniums in there as well. So it's kind of quite big and quite sprawling, and it looks great as well. You know, it just kind of, it's that contrast, isn't it, between the kind of hard production side and being an ornamental garden as well.
So more peas on the left.
Yeah.
And then broad bean station.
So these broad beans have been in since just before Christmas.
Really?
Yeah, so we get them in nice and early. They look a bit feeble coming through the winter, but it just enables them to kind of get their roots down and get going. Yeah. And you can see they're looking nice and fresh and healthy now, and there's some good flower on there, so hopefully we'll get some good beans off them.
Beautiful. Do you rotate what you grow in these beds in particular?
Yeah, so the whole production garden is on a constant rotation, so we keep quite accurate records of what we grow and where.
Okay.
Just so that we can kind of turn stuff over annually, really.
So I grew beans next to my rhubarb, probably a bit niche, last year. And am I right in thinking they leave nitrogen in the soil?
Yeah, so you probably want to think about going for a different crop in there, so maybe even like salad crop.
Courgettes?
Courgettes, yeah.
Because they're hungry,
courgettes.
I was thinking
they're
that
quite courgettes, yeah, they'd be quite good. The only thing is courgettes quite thuggish.
Yes, might not have any rhubarb if I put my courgettes
They'll probably
in next
be fine,
to it.
I'm sure.
And you've got really beautiful archways. Are they just willow arches you've made there?
Yeah, so all that is we just bend the willow over, tuck it into the ground, and then use a little bit of string just to tie them in. But it just stops them falling over. Yeah, especially if you get a heavy rain shower now, they can kind of sprawl over. Chance to be a fine thing.
Yeah, we've not had rain in goodness knows how long.
Very dry.
Well, that's definitely an idea I'll be stealing. I'm going to do that at home this weekend. And then what else have we got around here? Lovely lavender underplanting the trees. Does it get enough water there from the rain? Or I guess lavender doesn't need too much anyway, does it?
No, it's a Mediterranean plant. They're a little bit old now. I think we'll probably be looking to change these this year. They do quite well in there, but they kind of get to an age where they get quite woody and quite old. So although we've given them a couple of chops back, it's probably time to freshen the soil up and put some more in there, really.
Interesting. Yeah, my lavender is looking even woodier, and I did give it a hack a couple of weeks ago, so we'll see if it comes back to life.
Now's the time to do it. If you can see there's some new growth coming from the base, they will come from that. I mean, you can see these ones here, yeah, they're quite leggy. Yeah. They've kind of almost grown out towards the sun here, so at the same time we'll probably give this Portuguese laurel a chop back as well, just to kind of reinvigorate it a bit, really.
So what's this growing here? Are these mini kohlrabis?
Yeah, so there's various brassicas in here. These ones we've got some cabbage in here. That one is Regency.
You've left plenty of space for them to get huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, netted.
Yes. Oh yeah, mine wouldn't stand a chance without the netting.
Yeah, so they can get going in there. They've got a bit of space around them. No, they're looking well, actually.
They're looking good. They're looking very healthy. And this is a beautiful structure. What do we have in here?
So this at the minute is kind of a display house. So we've got the lovely Tracheospurna March. We're just about to fill the beds outside with some pelargoniums. And then inside we've got a combination of things, such as passion flower, heliotrapes. There's some basil. We've got the water feature with the ferns and things on.
Let's take a look. They are absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness. That, don't take this the wrong way, but that reminds me of the Play-Doh that you used to have when you were little. That smell, don't you think? It's so nostalgic.
And we've got a few of these little Primula malacoides. We actually grow these. It's not looking its best at the minute. It's kind of almost at the end of its season. But we grow those for the house. They're a great little robust plant. Nice little white flowers. They're kind of almost pyramid-like. Yeah,
they're beautiful. And that's not a chocolate peppermint, is it?
No, I think that is a basil.
Oh, it's a basil?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Really beautiful.
And then we've got the passion flower that will grow up over the structure as well.
Wow. And it is seriously toasty in here.
Yeah,
but obviously
it is
this gives it moisture. Whoops. Try not to fall into the fountain. Does this add humidity for the plants in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's kind of dual purpose because it looks nice. It kind of gives a little bit of noise with the water movement. And the fish that are living out in the pond in the garden come and live in here for the winter. So they have a little summer holiday in warmer climates.
So what have you got in these greenhouses?
So we've got some peaches growing on the walls. And then we've got lots of tomato plants that we're growing in here, as well as lots of herbs lining the windows.
Ooh.
You've got the strawberries on the floor, and a few pelargoniums as well.
So we've got more pelargoniums. My goodness. Have you recently potted in the tomatoes?
Yeah, so the tomatoes went in last week. We've got the herbs growing in the window. We've got the peaches on the walls behind you, and the strawberries along the floor there as well. And then there's a few microgreens in here as well for the chefs. So it's a good usable growing space for us, really.
You must have so many tomatoes. What do you do with them all at the end of the season? Do you make chutneys or anything like that?
Yeah, so if we've got a glut of certain fruits or tomatoes or things like that, we'll give them to the chefs and they'll preserve them and pickle them and store them. So yeah, we're quite lucky in that sense that actually we can kind of preserve stuff and kind of fill that hungry gap of the year, really.
That's a really good idea. And you said you've got microgreens. Is that in the little next door room?
Yeah, so there's a few pots of microgreens on the window there.
So this is magical for me to see because I love growing microgreens at home, but I never know how to make them look lovely. But the fact that you've just done them in these big terracotta pots is such a great idea.
Yeah, so we've got things like we've got the pea shoots here, we've got coriander, we've got some dill. Yeah, you know, they're kind of fairly resilient really in this kind of climate. We've got things like the nasturtium down there as well, which are great for the young shoots.
Such a good idea. That was something else that I spotted at your garden scheme last year, and I've been growing my nasturtiums in big pots this year, and even today I made those summer salad rolls.
Oh, wow.
And just pinch a couple of leaves from the geraniums on the table and stick it into your salads. So I thought this was a ginormous squash frame, but they're cucumbers.
Yeah, so we've got 2 varieties of cucumber in here. We've got the petite and we've got some other ones in there as well, just kind of bulking the frame out. So it's fairly prolific. You know, again, we've got these steel structures that we clad with the willow, just kind of dress them up a little bit really, and it just kind of gives a little bit of extra structure to be able to tie them in.
Wow, Joe, this area it's like you've stepped into a garden wonderland. How magical. Alliums, the peonies. I can only imagine what this will look like in a week or so when they all burst into bloom.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got the peonies that are kind of just almost there. You've got a few of the roses. I think that was Kew Gardens at the back there. You can see everything else is kind of loaded with bud. There's some _ʔ𝙀𝙀 poking through. And then with the white and the purple alliums, it's kind of, yeah, it's a real spring garden, isn't it?
It really is. And I imagine that this just evolves every week. It almost looks different.
Yeah, you kind of constantly get that ebb and flow because, you know, as the alliums go over, you've got the peonies opening out, and then, you know, you're followed by that kind of succession of roses. You know, there's some big old peonies in here, and early on as well, you know, there's lots of blue and white forget-me-not through here. So very early on in the spring, you've got that kind of carpet just as everything's kind of emerging through.
Well, the bumblebees are loving life in this area of the garden. They are very happy. And so in the winter, because obviously at the moment there's no bare soil here really, is that a weed prevention technique? I
mean, it is great for weed prevention because, you know, kind of if you're covering over the soil and there's less space for things to germinate. You know, in terms of areas of the garden, this is probably one of the lower maintenance areas of the garden throughout the summer because other than the deadheading, you know, things really get on with it in here. You know, we put the supports in. You can just see some of them underneath the peonies there. They go in reasonably early. We give it a good mulch, and then really for the majority of the summer, it kind of just looks after itself, really.
And do you pick things from this part of the garden to take into the house, or does this stay outside?
Some. We do have a cutting garden, so we try and avoid taking too much out of the garden. We try and grow things for cut flowers, just so it's not kind of, yeah, picking bits from the garden all the time, really.
So is this the orchard part of the garden?
Yeah, so we're here in the inner orchard. So we're kind of, again, we're protected by the walls in here. So we've got things like the pears, we've got the cob nuts behind us, and then multiple apple varieties and medlars in amongst the wildflowers here as well.
Absolutely beautiful. And I imagine that the wildflowers here are probably part of the inspiration behind the spring garden candle at Daylesford.
Absolutely.
Get so many scents as you walk through the garden.
Yeah, you've got that kind of freshness in the spring, haven't you? You know, just as everything's kind of emerging, you know, you've got the blossom coming out, the meadows are kind of just starting to come to life. Everything's got that kind of, yeah, fresh vibe to it, isn't it?
It's beautiful. And do you know what's so inspiring is that it's, as much as it's absolutely perfect, there are so many areas which are left to be wild. I mean, look at this, just the dandelions and the buttercups and the daisies. What a lovely way to encourage pollination.
Some lovely vetch coming through here, but this is actually filled with pyramid orchids as well. So we intentionally don't mow these flanks in here, and it's just a mass of the pyramid orchids through here a little bit later on in the season.
Wow, it's absolutely stunning. And these larger daisies, Is that chamomile? A type of chamomile?
Those are the 𝑭𝒊𝒏𝒅 daisies, those ones.
Ah, okay.
So can be a little bit of a thug.
Oh, really?
Because they, they can take over after a little while, but I think they're great for the spring. You know, they're good for early pollinators.
And you were saying there's a special apple tree in there with multiple varieties altogether?
Yeah, so we have a family apple tree that's got it's about 30 varieties grafted all the way around it. So each branch, if you like, is a different variety of apple. So it's kind of a bit of a pet project, really, for one of our gardeners. But yeah, interesting.
That's so cool. So you're kind of experimenting and trying different things here as well as the classics.
Yeah, so lots of heritage varieties. You know, that's really what we're all about here is growing things that you can't pick up everywhere. So yeah, it's just experimenting with different things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Well, what a beautiful place to spend your days all throughout the year. I imagine it's just always providing so much joy.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time showing us around the garden. And of course, we're so grateful to Lady B for letting us film in here today. Hopefully you'll be back to see it in another light, another season. And have a lovely evening.
And you, thank you.